Do-do-do. Do-do-do. All right. Can I share this? Yeah, it always just takes a second. Do-do-do. Wait for everyone to get here and we'll share the links. Sure. Zach Hayes, welcome. Glad you could join us. I think it's just you and me right now. Or no, maybe not. There's more people watching. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Sharing one more link. What are you doing? What are you going to do? Okay, here we go. Sure. With it. Okay, think we're good. Hello. Rehi78D. How's it going, everyone? Are we all doing well? We all have a good week. Yeah, so here we are again. This is Video Drone with me, Disregarding Henry, the show where I just drone on endlessly about movies. And we got two this week. I finally saw Logan, so we'll probably talk about that. And I also watched the new Craig Zoller movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99, so we'll talk about that too. Two very gritty, violent, masculine movies. So, hey, get that testosterone pumping, because, yeah, we're talking about some tough guy movies today. Let's see what we got going on in the chat here. I'm gonna try this time to just kind of let myself be carried along by the chat. See, I'm experimenting a little bit. See if I can get more efficient with maneuvering through the chat. And again, I want to try this again. If you have something that you really want me to notice, question, comment, if you could put my name in there, it'll pop up with a nice orange bar that'll grab my attention, and I'll know that's one I have to read. So just throwing that out there. Try to make it easier. And see, if I don't, well, we'll just see what happens this week. I'll give it a shot this way. Marco, welcome. JF, a while ago you talked about the Stanford prison experiment. The other day I found a film which covers a similar topic, compliance. Have you seen it? That is the one that is set like in a fast food restaurant, isn't it? Yeah, and it's about, I think it's based on a true story. I believe it is. And not just one true story. Apparently it happened like dozens of times, like pretty much the exact same thing, of somebody calling a fast food restaurant, pretending to be a police officer, saying that like one of your employees, is stealing money or whatever it is. And they basically, created this situation, where they convinced the other employees at the fast food place to humiliate another employee, like do strip searches. It's really disturbing. It's a very, very disturbing movie, and a very like infuriating movie too. But yeah, that's a tough one. That is a really tough one, but it is good. Yeah, and also a very I guess just a very disquieting examination of like the submission to power, of how, if somebody just speaks with enough authority, you can kind of get people to do anything. It's terrifying, and similar, to like Stanford prison experiment, other kind of like a psychological experiments like that where, yeah, if you like I don't know what the other experiment was called, but it was where they would hire actors and they would have test subjects, and basically the way the test was set up, they would have actors like in a room, and they would have the actual test subjects in another room, I think behind a two-way mirror, and they would basically say like, okay, this person's going to answer questions, you have to give them an electric shock when they answer incorrectly. But what the people giving the shock didn't know is that the people answering the questions were actually actors. There was no electricity. But it would basically be a thing like the actors would purposefully answer the questions wrong, and then the actual test subjects would have to hit the button, and they thought give the person an electric shock. And yeah, it's a really disturbing study. I think there was also a movie made about that one. I forget what it's called though. But yeah, basically like everybody involved, even up to the point, oh, Marco, it's called the Milgram experiment? Okay, thank you. Apparently it's called the Milgram experiment. But yeah, basically they discovered that like almost none of the test subjects, even though they thought they were causing actual physical pain to another person, it was kind of like basically all of them complied and did what they were told to do, as long as the psychologist doing the experiment, as long as they spoke with enough authority, said, and just basically said, you don't have a choice, you have to do this. And they did it. And it's really disturbing and really troubling that, that's just kind of an instinctual thing with a lot of people, with you or I, like, gosh, who knows? It makes you think about all the horrible things that go on in the world and how, yeah, huge groups of people can be compliant to these horrible situations. And it just makes you contemplate how, like, gosh, would I behave any differently? Like, you watch Compliance, that's, I think, the most disturbing thing about that movie, is the whole time you're thinking, I would never do this. And the really horrifying thing is when you think, like, would I? Maybe I would. I don't know. I would never like to think I would do something like that, but God, you never know. Yeah, don't always be willing to submit to authority. Think for yourself. Question, that's important. Let's see. What else we got here? Okay, I am going to scroll back through the chat to look at some of these other comments. I apologize. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it. Zach Hayes, I heard that Vince Vaughn movie is pretty good that you're going to talk about. It was pretty good, and I will talk about it. Dropout number 7. Thoughts on Stranger Things? I haven't seen it. I actually haven't watched Stranger Things. I know season 2 just premiered. I know everyone's crazy about Stranger Things. I have not yet seen it. So unfortunately, yeah, I cannot comment upon it. I apologize for that. Volstix, welcome. Cinnamon San, glad you could join us. LJ, hello, how are you? I love Logan, such a great movie. Yeah, that one was pretty good too. We'll talk about it in just a second. And yeah, Rehi. Okay, so I was talking about the right movie. Yeah, pretty shocking things in Compliance. Yeah, actually really happened. Very, very disturbing. And perhaps most disturbing of all, it wasn't an isolated incident. It was a thing that happened multiple times. Ugh. Oh man, it's a movie that really sickens you. It nauseates you to your stomach. Not an easy movie to watch, but pretty well done. Have to admit, very effective. Jack, hello. Jackie, hello. Glad everyone is here. Volstix, funnily enough, I just watched Brawl in Cell Block 99 today. Effing gnarly film. Vince Vaughn was so good, and I was struck at how well paced the film was. I mean, for such an episodic movie, great stuff. That penultimate dummy shot was a bit dodgy, though. Yeah, let's see. What else we got? The Wave? What is The Wave? Oh, that must be related to what I was talking about, like Compliance and those kinds of movies. Stanford Prison Experiment. The Wave. I may have heard of that one. I'm not sure, though. I'm going to write that down. The Wave. Oh, also, I should say right now, I have a hard out before 4 o'clock. I've got an interview scheduled at 4, so I got to make sure the show is done by then. But that doesn't mean we can't also have a good time. I also got a new chair. I got a new chair today, just finished putting it together. That's why I'm a little late, but it is nice and comfy. It doesn't make as much noise. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, so Brawl in Cell Block 99. since you bring it up, Volstix, I might as well talk about it right now. Yeah, I thought this movie was very, very good. I don't know who else has seen it. Obviously, Volstix has. But yeah, it just came out fairly recently on VOD. I think it's getting a very limited theatrical run. Unfortunately, yeah, I don't think it's playing in many places. But yeah, this is the second film by S. Craig Zahler. What is Volstick saying? Interested to see that film S. Craig Zahler wrote. It has two titles: The Cook's Cot and The Asylum Breakout. Let me IMDb it. The Incident or Asylum Blackout. Oh, I think that was like an early one he did. I haven't seen those. Yeah, he's been around for a while. I did a little bit of research on him because I'm going to do a Henry Recommends video on Brawl in Cell Block 99. But right now, since it's still October, I'm trying to just do horror movies and Halloween stuff, so I'll probably do that one, the Brawl in Cell Block 99 one, in November. But yeah, I was doing some reading about him. Yeah, apparently he started out as like a cinematographer, and then started writing scripts. And he actually sold like a bunch of scripts to major studios, but none of them ever got made. This was in the early to mid 2000s. Apparently one of them was actually a Western that got picked up. I forget which studio bought it, but apparently Park Chan-wook, director of Old Boy, Handmaiden, great filmmaker. Apparently Park Chan-wook was going to direct it in 2004, but it never happened. And then, yeah, I guess probably just through growing frustrated with his initial film career, he kind of turned instead to music. He became a musician, started a band, started releasing albums, and he became a novelist, started writing novels, and apparently very acclaimed novels. I've never read any of his work, but he wrote like sci-fi, horror, western, several novels, and now recently has become a writer-director. So his first movie that he actually finished and got released was Bone Tomahawk in 2015. Very, very disturbing, graphic, violent horror western, starring Kurt Russell and Patrick Wilson. A few other actors, really good cast. Richard Jenkins. Excellent movie, though. Very disturbing, very graphic, horrifically violent. I don't often get nauseated by movie violence anymore, but I gotta say, that was a movie, in certain moments, it was so brutal that I actually felt nauseous. It's pretty hard to watch in some spots, but it is good. It is very, very good. It's got an excellent story, really well-written characters, great performances, and yeah, it's structured in a way that is very carefully thought out, carefully planned. It builds in intensity and suspense and really draws you in a way that makes you very genuinely invested in what's happening, who it's happening to. It's really good. Which is surprising to me, you know, a movie that is such an unusual combination of genres, Western and horror, and that is so disturbingly violent, can also at the same time be such a great story with such great characters that generates such emotional investment from you. Brawl in Cell Block 99 is very similar. This is his second movie, released this year. Like I said, it came out recently, VOD in theaters. You can rent it right now for about $7, I think is the price right now. But yeah, I recommend that you do. Again, if you've seen Bone Tomahawk, if you know about it, if you're squeamish to violence, this is a violent movie. Yeah, anybody expecting the same kind of, very graphic, very disturbing violence that you got in Bone Tomahawk, you're not going to be disappointed by this one. But like Volstick said, it's very well paced. Let me see. Volstick, struck by how well paced the movie is. I was also struck by the same thing. It's very well written and it's very well structured. It's a movie that escalates in a really interesting way. It starts out fairly restrained. There's not a lot of violence at the beginning, and even when it does get to violent scenes, you don't really see much. There's not a lot of blood, not a lot of gore or anything. It's very restrained because this is a movie that builds, that escalates very deliberately. It's long. It's about 2 hours and 12 minutes. But at the same time, I feel like it's a movie that doesn't really have any fat on it. You know, it's a movie that never really establishes the same piece of information twice. Every scene is establishing a new piece of the story, a new piece of the characters. It's constantly pushing the film and the story forward. So there's a very steady momentum to it. But yeah, basically the story is, I don't want to spoil too much because I think part of how good this movie is really following the logic of it, the progression of it. This leads to this, leads to this. It's a movie with a lot of perspicuity, you know. It just takes you so clearly along a line of progression. There's a kind of beauty to it. And it's almost like Dante's Inferno, you know. It kind of starts out in the real world, and just as it goes along, it gets darker, it gets grittier, it gets more disturbing, it gets more violent, and it becomes more and more detached from reality. It becomes more and more surreal. Sort of like, I don't know, like Heart of Darkness, like Apocalypse Now, something like that. But basically, Vince Vaughn plays a guy, a former boxer, I believe, who is just kind of, you know, trying to live a decent life, but can't really seem to catch a break. He loses his job, doesn't really have any prospects or anything. Okay, I see Vaultstick's posting some comments. I'll get to these in a second. Yeah, so he doesn't really have any options left, so he turns to an old friend and gets into the world of drug running, which eventually leads to him. I don't want to spoil too much. I just want to kind of give you an idea of where the movie's going. I'm going to try not to spoil anything major. But basically, you know, once he turns to drug running, he kind of ends up in prison with a very angry drug lord out to kill his wife and unborn child, unless he agrees to take out a particular prisoner who happens to be located in the maximum security cell block 99. So basically, you know, he kind of starts out in a minimum security prison. He needs to get sent to the maximum security cell block 99. How does he do that? He starts fighting and he starts committing horrific acts of violence, which steadily grow more and more horrific as the movie goes on. So it's sort of about personal morality. It's about sacrifice. You know, how much is this guy willing to degrade himself, you know, to save his family? But it's very interesting. The lead character, you know, he's kind of like this Western type character, you know, this tough guy, doesn't really say a lot, just kind of does what he needs to do. There's a lot. Vince Vaughn is really extraordinary. His performance is really great. It's very nuanced. It projects a lot of like vulnerability and humanity, but at the same time, it's also very focused and very intense. You know, he's a guy that you actually believe, you know, he's capable of the things that he does in this movie, but at the same time, you know, has depth and complexity. It's really, I think, one of Vince Vaughn's best performances. But yeah, so the movie just kind of steadily grows darker and harsher and more violent until basically at the end, it kind of becomes like a full-on splatter movie. It's pretty gnarly. I think that word was dropped earlier. Pretty gnarly. Yeah, but very, very good. You get invested in the guy's story. He's an engaging character. The way Zoller, you know, again, like I said, carefully structures the story, the way he builds detail, you know, the way he populates the film with really interesting characters, with really clever dialogue scenes. It's really good. It's really entertaining. It draws you in. It increases the pressure, and yeah, you kind of follow this character along through this descent, you know, that is very compelling, and yeah, probably a little too much for some viewers. That's understandable, but it really does get you invested, you know. It puts the character in a situation where you really do wonder, like, how's he going to get out of this? How is he going to save, you know, his wife and kid. How's he gonna do this? Where is this going to end? So you really do get gripped, and you really do want to find out what happens next. And yeah, this one doesn't really have. I guess Vince Vaughn's probably the biggest actor, but it's got some interesting supporting characters. There's Don Johnson as a prison warden. Jennifer Carpenter plays his wife, and I gotta say, I really have to compliment Craig Zoller on his ability not just to write, because he makes very masculine movies, and westerns, like prison fight movies. Masculine movies like this, I have to say, typically don't really have very good female characters. He is an exception to this. He writes really good, really interesting, and really strong female characters. That was one thing that distinguished Bone Tomahawk, because that movie's all basically centered around a woman who gets kidnapped, and this group of guys have to go rescue her. That could have easily been, a very boring, just cliche, passive female character. She's actually a really interesting character in that movie. She's a doctor, she's strong and active, and once they find her, she's not just the helpless damsel in distress. She plays an active role in trying to help with her own escape and doing things. She's actually a participant in the story, a really good character. Brawl in Cell Block 99 is the same way. The wife could have easily been just the boring symbol of purity, and all the focus is just on the male lead. But she's actually really interesting too. She has complexities. Their marriage has complexities. They go through, at the beginning, they go through some really rough stuff, and pull through it. So it's actually really interesting. And she's a strong character too. She's not just the helpless, passive victim. She plays her own active role as well. So it's really good, I think. Really well done. Great characters, great writing. Yeah, Vince Vaughn is really at the top of his game here. Definitely, yeah. I think deliberately deciding to move past, his trend of just doing a lot of comedies lately and trying to really show what he can do as an actor. And this movie really gives him the opportunity to do that. And yeah, it's dark, it's violent, and yeah, it's really compelling and gripping. I highly recommend you watch it. Again, very graphic violence, very disturbing in a lot of spots. So be warned. If that sounds like it might be too much for you, then maybe don't watch it. But if you think you can handle it, if you like, I think this movie is really trying to pay tribute to like 70s grindhouse movies, exploitation movies. So it really has that kind of tone, that kind of gritty, harsh tone. And there's like all these funk and soul songs on the soundtrack, which they sound totally authentic. They sound right out of the 70s. Apparently, every song on the soundtrack was an original track that Craig Zoller actually co-wrote and co-composed himself, because, again, he's a musician. So, yeah, pretty interesting. It I think, pays tribute to that era and that subgenre of filmmaking really well, but also manages to bring a little bit more artistry to it at the same time. But yeah, a really good film. I recommend that you check it out. Craig Zoller is definitely a talent to watch. This was not a disappointment after Bone Tomahawk, which was pretty good. And I'm looking forward to his next one, which is apparently coming out next year. It's again going to be a team up with Vince Vaughn, and I think Mel Gibson is the co-star in it. It's going to be about police brutality. So sure, that's going to be another really gritty, harsh, disturbing one. It's called Dragged Across Concrete. We'll hopefully that one, is another good one as well. I'm sure, again, we can expect very disturbing content in that one. And he's also, I heard that one of his novels, a Western novel that he wrote, is being adapted by Ridley Scott as well. So he's an up-and-comer. His career is really taken off now, which is cool to see, because he's a real talent. So be interested to see where that goes. He's already got 2 pretty damn good movies under his belt. So yeah, there you go. I'm looking at the chat now. Take a look at what I missed. Dropout number 7. Have you seen the 2015 horror flick Hidden? It's a feature by the Duffer Brothers, and the Duffer Brothers are Stranger Things, right? They created Stranger Things. But I have not seen Hidden, I don't believe. But I will try to look into it. Hidden. Yeah, have not seen that, but I'll try to look into it. Oh, JF, I recommend The Wave too. It's German. Okay, so I wrote The Wave down. German movie. I'll look into that. Let's see. Cinnamon San, I had a good time with Good Time this week. More people seen it. The Robert Pattinson movie. Have not seen that one yet. Really want to, though. Hopefully I'll get a chance soon. But yeah, I've been hearing really good things about Good Time. I want to see it. Let's see. Volsticks. Word. Zoller does horrifying violence really well. A little bit too well. Those head stomps in Cell Block 99. Whew, really made me flinch and turn away a bit. Yeah. Yeah, there's some pretty visceral moments in this one, definitely. I agree with you there. Volsticks, I want to know, was Christopher Smart real, though, in Cell Block 99? That is a major spoiler if I were to talk about that, Volsticks. I apologize. I have an idea. I think, yeah, in my interpretation, I have my idea of what was going on there. But, yeah, I don't want to say anything about it because that is a pretty major spoiler. So sorry, but, yeah, I don't know, maybe another time, but yeah, I don't think I can answer that question in good conscience because that's a big spoiler. So sorry about that. Let's see. Jackie loved Good Time. Thought Robert Pattinson's performance was incredible. Yeah, I've been hearing that. Pattinson's been doing some interesting stuff lately. Got to give him props for that. Yeah, stuff like The Lost City of Z, and yeah, the David Cronenberg movies. He worked with Herzog on Queen of the Desert. Now Good Time. He's been making a lot of really interesting choices, doing a lot of really interesting projects lately. Got to give him credit for that. He's really branching out, really trying to, yeah, show that he's a real actor, and I think succeeding, especially the last couple of years. I listened to an interview with him on the Nerdist podcast, and it was really interesting. You know, he's talked about how it's been kind of hard for him to get the parts he really wants because he's still, you know, just seen as the Twilight guy. Hang on, I got to plug in my computer here. You think by now I would remember to do that, but yeah, he was talking about just kind of how tenacious he has to be in order to get the parts he really wants. Like how Good Time, he really had to like pester the directors to get cast in that one because he wanted the part so bad and he wanted to work with them so much. Yeah, he also talked about some of the other projects he's been going after, like the guy, I cannot remember his name, but the director of Embrace of the Serpent is, I think, beginning work on a new movie, and Pattinson said he's been cast in that one as well. And he said it was another thing where he saw Embrace of the Serpent, thought it was an amazing movie, immediately got a hold of the director and just said, whatever you're doing next, I have to be in it, and just, you know, pestered the guy until he finally convinced him, like, okay, fine, I'll put you in my next movie. So he's going to work with, yeah, the Embrace of the Serpent director on his next movie. Yeah, I think, yeah, he's really dedicated to his craft and really showing what he can do, choosing interesting projects, working with interesting directors. So that's very cool. And yeah, probably because still his name, you know, is associated with one of the biggest movie franchises in recent years. It's probably helping, yeah, a lot of smaller directors get more exposure and, you know, get projects financed easier. So that's very cool. You know, I respect him for that. And yeah, I definitely want to see Good Time. Cinnamon San, Heaven Knows What isn't bad either. Bit more serious and heavy-handed though. Yeah, Heaven Knows What, the previous film, I believe, by the directors of Good Time. It's on Netflix. I have it written down on my watch list. I still haven't seen it yet, but I really want to. I've been trying to watch some of the stuff on my watch list too. I know I watched at least two. I did see, yeah, I watched Mike Flanagan stuff last week. I need to cross that off. But I also watched, God, where did I put it? But I watched the romantic comedy, The One I Love. I watched that one, which was really, really good. So thank you to whoever recommended The One I Love. That was a really clever movie, really interesting concept. felt sort of like Charlie Kaufman, you know, in its weird combination of like sci-fi and just like very realistic, grounded romance, or I guess the difficulties that people face in relationships and marriages crossed with this really interesting like Twilight Zone sort of sci-fi concept. It's really good, really, really good. I watched it on Amazon Prime, but I think it was the Duplass brothers. They didn't make it, but it stars one of the Duplass brothers, and I think they produced it. Both of them did. It's really good, though. I really enjoyed it. It takes some very clever twists and turns, really original and surprising. So I highly recommend that one. And I also watched, I don't know if I can find it. And again, I don't remember who recommended it. I'm sorry, but I also watched What We Do in the Shadows, which was very, very good, very funny. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Loved the way it was actually like a really legitimately well done horror film. You know, like it knows vampire mythology. It's really well made. Like the production design, the house, the costumes, the makeup, everything's like legit. Like it's really well done. The effects are very well done. It's like a legitimate vampire movie that just takes this approach of like showing the supernatural as a really just boring, mundane thing, and showing these supernatural characters in all these boring, mundane situations. But I really love that. The contrasts there, and yeah, the very dry comedy. It's really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Zach Hayes. I recommended the one I love. So I'm glad you got to see it. Well, thank you for the recommendation. I did really enjoy that one. Did you recommend What We Do in the Shadows too? I keep watching all of your recommendations for some reason. I need to watch some of these other ones too. But yeah, those were both really good. What else we got here? Let's see. Good point, Henry. Zoller does write really good female characters. Well, yes, I felt so. You're free to disagree with me, of course, but I've actually been very impressed with how good the female characters, and it's really, I guess you could say, his movies don't really pass the Bechdel test because there's only like really one female character in each of them. But you know, for genres, I think that typically don't really have very good female characters. Both of them I thought have been pretty exceptionally well written and three-dimensional. So I was very pleasantly surprised by that. Zach Hayes, have you heard of Personal Shopper? I've heard good things about it. Just came out by Criterion, so it might be good. I have heard of Personal Shopper. I know that's what's his name? Olivier Assayas, I think is how you say his name. I've only seen like a couple of his movies. I saw, it's one I have on Blu-ray on the Criterion Collection. I think it's Summer Hours with Juliette Binoche. It's been a while since I've watched it, so I don't really remember a lot of it. And I also saw, again, another Blu-ray, Carlos, the like big like 5-hour movie he directed about Carlos the Jackal, starring what's his name, Edgar Ramirez, which is very good, very long. But also very interesting too. Really great performance from Edgar Ramirez. So yeah, I need to watch some more of Assayas's movies. I'm gonna write down Personal Shopper. Yeah, but also like Something in the Air, and what's the other Kristen Stewart one? Clouds of Silmaria, I think it's called. Yeah, I've heard good things about all of those, so I want to check them out. So I have to see if I can see those. I think Clouds of Silmaria is on Netflix, so I might be able to watch that one. Let's see. Oh, Vol Sticks. Okay, I have an idea too, talking about Brawl and Cell Block 99, I'm guessing. I respect your discretion, no problem. Should rewatch. Yeah, I kind of want to rewatch it again too. Yeah, I did really enjoy Brawl and Cell Block 99. I want to rewatch Bone Tomahawk as well. Yeah, I've been very impressed by both of those. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Zach Hayes. Kristen Stewart is in Personal Shopper. Sounds like some of the Twilight people are making good work and branching out. Yeah, not just Robert Pattinson, but yeah, definitely Kristen Stewart has been doing a lot of really interesting stuff lately as well. Cinnamon Sand liked Personal Shopper. Saw it at a film festival in Rotterdam. Cool. Yeah, haven't seen it yet, but I will have to check it out. Zach Hayes, I recommended What We Do in the Shadows as well. I just keep watching your recommendations. It just keeps happening. But thank you. They've been pretty good ones so far. I don't want to ignore anyone else's suggestions though. I'll have to. It just keeps happening though. I don't know why. Are you interested in the new Thor film now because it's done by the same director? I don't know, mildly interested. I saw a trailer for it. It does look interesting. You know, it does look like it's kind of trying to do something different, something a little bit more like wild and stylized and, you know, big and colorful. So I don't know. It might be interesting. It takes a lot to get me interested in a superhero movie, though. I'm still pretty stubborn about that. I am talking about Logan today, which I got to say I was pretty impressed by. So there's that. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess at the very least, there's mild interest for me in the new Thor film. I saw a trailer for it, and there's imagery in it that struck me. And yeah, the fact that, oh gosh, how do you say his name? Taika Waititi, I think. Yeah, the fact that he's directing it does generate a bit more interest in me than would have otherwise been there. But I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how the reviews are. I probably won't go see it in theaters, but it might be one I see at some point. Like Logan, you know, I was just so stubbornly refusing to watch it for so long, and then I finally see it, and it's like, holy shit, that was pretty good. We'll talk about that in just a second. Fall Sticks. Oh yeah, One I Love is great. Elizabeth Moss is really good. Yes, she's always very good. She was in a great movie called Queen of Earth that I feel like not a lot of people have seen. It's a really underrated, underseen movie. I think it's still streaming on Netflix. But Queen of Earth is a really excellent, like, psychological horror movie. She plays the lead role. She's really, really good. Catherine Waterston is in it. Very underseen movie. Try to find it if you can. Queen of Earth. Yeah, Elizabeth Moss. She's great in that one, and yeah, she's great in The One I Love as well. Kind of surprised you hadn't seen What We Do in the Shadows till recently. Such a great film. I'm hyped for the Werewolf Pack sequel. I didn't know that was happening. That should be good, right? Is it the same people? I hope so. Werewolves, not swearwolves. Some classic lines in that movie. Let's see. And now I'm back to doing my old thing of scrolling through the chat and answering each question individually. It's just what I do. I guess there's no avoiding it. Fool on the Hill. Highly recommend you check out the show Mr. Robot. Some of the best storytelling and cinematography I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. You know what? I think Mr. Robot has been recommended to me. Spilling my coffee. I think Mr. Robot has been recommended to me a couple times. So I believe it is written down on here somewhere. But yeah, I am aware of Mr. Robot, and I have been hearing, yeah, lots of great things about it. So this is on my list, I'm pretty sure. I know Mr. Robot is here somewhere. Maybe not. Maybe I should write it down again just in case. But yeah, I am aware of Mr. Robot and the acclaim that it's getting. So yeah, just for safety, I'm going to write down Mr. Robot again. Yeah, I think it's on Amazon, or at least first two seasons are. I'll have to try and get around to it. I still need to watch season 2 of Fargo. Yeah, there's a lot of shows I need to catch up on. Let's see. The One I Love is directed by Malcolm McDowell's son. I did not know that. That is very interesting. He is a very talented director then. I had no idea he was Malcolm McDowell's son. That is very cool. Yeah, I wonder if he's done anything else. I'd like to check out some of his other stuff. Let's see. Volsticks. The Bechdel test is nothing to do with the amount of women in a film, just FYI. I thought the Bechdel test was like, there's three criteria, right? There has to be, okay, what is it? There has to be at least 2 women in a movie. I thought that was part of the Bechdel test. There has to be at least 2 women. They have to share at least one scene together, and in that scene, they have to talk about something other than a male character. I thought those were the 3 points to the Bechdel test. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, you have to have at least 2 women, and you have to put them together in a scene with no one else, with no men, just the women. I'm pretty sure that's part of the Bechdel test. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, Jack, talking about Mr. Robot. The cinematography for Mr. Robot is amazing, but it felt like the show was ripping off Fight Club quite a bit. Interesting. Again, I haven't seen the show, so I can't comment on that, but I have seen, like still images and like previews for Mr. Robot. It is very strikingly shot. Something, yeah, you can tell even just seeing little bits of it. TV shows are getting pretty amazing, like in the production value department. It's pretty impressive, like how amazing looking television is becoming. Let's see. Zach Hayes, I think it's because I haven't disappointed you with my recommendations yet. As soon as I do, I'm sure you'll cut me off on recommendations. We'll see, maybe. I don't know. If you recommended to me a movie like Baby's Day Out or the A-Team movie, I might lose respect for you. But it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, I probably wouldn't respect you any less. Yeah. I don't care what movies, people like and want to recommend to me. Yeah. I try to have respect for everyone, but I do have to admit, those two movies in particular were ones I hated so much that, yeah, I might start to question your judgment if you did recommend them to me. But anyway, what else? Volsticks, holy shit, Queen of Earth, yes, really enjoyed that one. It was actually the poster art that initially attracted me to that film. It's got very good poster art. That what is it? Sort of like a painted image of Elizabeth Moss's face with like the mascara running down her cheeks. Very striking, yeah, poster art. And yeah, really good movie. I thought it was, to me, it felt like a horror film, like a psychological horror film, but without any of the obvious trappings of a horror movie, which I love movies like that, that are sort of like horror films in tone, but not really in detail so much. Something like Denis Villeneuve's Enemy, to me, that's a horror film. And it's a very creepy and effectively like unsettling movie, but it doesn't appear to be a horror movie. I love that one. This Rick Alverson movie called Entertainment, I thought was very much a horror film, but yeah, without any of the recognizable landmarks of a horror movie, but there's just something in the tone that really creeps you out, that really unsettles you. Queen of Earth, I thought, was the same way. I thought it was really good. So yeah, recommend that one to anyone that likes really unconventional horror movies, really creepy, unsettling, atmospheric sort of stuff. Zach Hayes, Mr. Robot is on Prime. The first 2 seasons, the third just started. Okay, so I'm not too far behind on that one yet. I'll have to see if I can get around to watching it. I still want to try and like get through season 2 of Fargo, and then I don't know, maybe I could jump into Mr. Robot, but I've also, people are telling me to watch Master of None and Boardwalk Empire. I got a lot of shows I got to catch up on, and that's a time commitment, watching a multi-season show. We'll see if I can get around to it, though. Mr. Robot has some American Psycho vibes as well, so it sounds like it's going to be pretty psychological, kind of like subjective and weird and surreal, maybe. That's what I'm guessing. Sounds interesting. I'm definitely interested. Jack, speaking of TV shows, has anyone watched any of Mindhunter, the new David Fincher series? Interesting. I have not seen Mindhunter. I think somebody brought it up last stream. Somebody mentioned Mindhunter, but I haven't watched it yet, so cannot comment on it. So maybe I should jump into Logan, get into that one. Let's see. Oh, people are saying Mindhunter is good. Yeah, I didn't know Fincher was doing another series. Because he's still on House of Cards, right? Or did he leave that? And yeah, now he's got Mindhunter. When's he going to do a movie? Or no, he's working on World War Z 2 for some reason. Is he still on that? I was very shocked when I found out he was making that. We'll see how that turns out, if it ends up happening. But hey, maybe it'll be good. Who knows? With David Fincher on it, you never know. Okay. Yeah, so Logan. I'm sure probably everybody has seen Logan by now, right? I'm probably the last one here to watch it, I'm guessing. Yes, as I'm sure probably everyone knows, oh, Zach Hayes, he left House of Cards. Oh, but I'm not sure. Okay, so he possibly left, Fincher possibly left House of Cards then. Because, yeah, I thought I remembered hearing that that was his show. Maybe he's just left it in other hands now. Yeah, I don't keep up enough with TV, unfortunately. But yeah. Oh, Jack, you haven't seen Logan? Cinnamon San, you haven't seen Logan? Okay, that makes me feel a little better. I'm not the last one then. But yeah, I remember Volsticks. I think Fincher is overrated, to be honest. Is that what TBH means? I never know these abbreviations. TBH. I'm guessing that's to be honest. But yeah, that's a controversial opinion, I'm sure. But I got to say, I'm kind of with you, Volsticks. Fincher's never been personally one of my favorites. But, you know, I do have a respect for him. He is clearly a visionary. He's very precise. He's very good at what he does. It's just, I don't know. For me, Fincher's movies can often leave me a little bit cold, you know, a little bit distanced. He's done some movies I have really liked. I think Fight Club is an exceptionally well-made movie. Seven, The Game, yeah, just visually, atmospherically, they're incredibly well-made movies. Zodiac, another great one. But yeah, I don't know. There's, I guess, just something about his work, something about, I don't know, just the high-tech quality of it, the extreme perfectionism and precision in his craft. There's just something that leaves me kind of cold about his work. I don't know. Something that feels like he's kind of draining the life and spontaneity out of it by being so controlled and so specific and so obsessive about everything. I don't know. That's just me. That's kind of the feeling I get from his work. Obviously, many people disagree with me. He has a pretty devoted fan base, and it's easy to see why. But just, yeah, for me, I don't know. He's never really been one that really did it for me, you know? But I can certainly respect his talent. So that's me. That's just me, you know? But anyways, only Jack says only 2 episodes in, and I quite like Mindhunter. It's incredibly dialogue driven. Oh, and has a really unnecessary romance. Well, 2 episodes, they're probably still trying to figure it out at that point. Shows often take time to really, you know, find their footing and really get going. But as long as you like it, as long as you're willing to stick with it. Okay, and Volsticks, I respect him. I think Zodiac is an excellent film. Fight Club is good. Others you mentioned. He's very post-MTV. Yeah, pernickety is what I would call Fincher. A pernickety filmmaker. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's similar to kind of how I feel about Hitchcock. You know, there's such such an obsessiveness with the craft, you know, and needing this shot here and needing, you know, everything to be so tightly controlled that I feel like it does something to sort of drain the life out of the movie, the spontaneity, you know, the feeling of just things happening. I really like movies like that have this feeling of spontaneity, you know, of things just happening. I love like Robert Altman movies, for instance, for that reason, that they have this feeling of he's just kind of capturing things as they're happening, or Paul Thomas Anderson, you know, the freedom of his camera that is just going and discovering all of these things. I tend to drift more towards that kind of filmmaking and less so, you know, the really rigid perfectionist kind of filmmaking like Hitchcock or Fincher. That's just me, though. I tend to react more to the stuff that feels a little bit looser, you know, that is less rigid. But Jack, I love the shit out of 7. I always thought that Zodiac and The Game were overrated, though. Interesting. So yeah, there's some varying opinions out there. What else we got? Oh, Volsticks, yep, drains the life and soul from a film. Gotta be a bit punk, I think. That's probably the best way I can put it in 200 characters. Got to be a little bit punk, a little bit anarchic. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Yeah, I've always felt that way about Hitchcock, which, yeah, obviously a lot of people have disagreed with me about that. Because of course Hitchcock is one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. Fincher, certainly of modern filmmakers, is probably one of the most respected, one of the most influential. But I don't know, yeah, their rigidity, yeah, it kind of frustrates me. And oftentimes when I watch their movies, it's almost like I can't really get invested in the story because I feel like the director is there, kind of just boxing it in. And so it just makes it more difficult for me to emotionally invest myself. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but that's just kind of like the way it feels to me watching their work, I'm more just kind of looking at the way it's put together rather than just, experiencing it in the moment emotionally, which is the way I like watching movies, is investing myself and, reacting and laughing and crying and getting an emotional response out of that. But with filmmakers that are too tightly controlled, it can often just be where you're just kind of watching the way it's put together. I feel that way with Hitchcock. I feel that way with Fincher. I feel that way often with Stanley Kubrick, but I guess with Stanley Kubrick, there's such incredible precision and such incredible control that there's something fascinating, just about watching that level of obsessiveness. It's almost like Kubrick is maybe the one exception to that rule, where he's so rigid, he's so controlled that it's kind of like you're almost just seeing a reflection of his mind up there on screen. So I think maybe Kubrick is kind of the one exception to that, where there's just kind of a fascination of just seeing, like, getting a peek maybe into a filmmaker's mindscape in that way, the way Kubrick would do it. For me, he's like the one exception to that rule. But yeah, with Hitchcock and Fincher, it's always been kind of like, I don't know. Leaves me a little cold, we got a couple more here. Zach Hayes, I just watched On the Waterfront here recently, and Boardwalk Empire has some similarities in my opinion. Scorsese was part of the show, and he really liked that film with the interview he did. Yes, On the Waterfront, I believe, is probably one of his favorites, and it is a great movie. It is, like, still to this day, it's still a really good movie. Yeah, an incredibly influential movie too. The performances, yeah, in On the Waterfront are still really damn good. It kind of changed the way American acting was done, because it was, it was a situation where Elia Kazan was just kind of setting up situations and letting the actors kind of like just do things in the moment. So it kind of brought a new naturalism to film acting that had never really existed before. A lot of Kazan's work is responsible for that, and other directors as well. The new method performers, groundbreaking performances by a number of major actors. But like On the Waterfront was kind of like one of the key movies in that region, and it's still really good to this day. It's still really well put together. A really terrific movie. Karl Malden, who I've been seeing in more movies lately. I am growing to love Karl Malden more and more the more stuff I see him in. On the Waterfront, I just watched one the other night on Turner Classic Movies. It was called Fear Strikes Out, kind of a bad title, but it's a baseball movie. Stars Anthony Perkins from Psycho. And I think it's based on a true story, but it's about this guy, whose father, speaking of perfectionism, it's about kind of like this guy who grows up, his father, is just kind of like driving him and pushing him to be like the best ball player and get in the major leagues. And it's just kind of like, it's the situation he has where, he can just never please his father. He's always being pushed harder and harder and harder. And then he kind of makes it to the major leagues and then starts suffering this major psychological breakdown. It's a really interesting movie, though. I think made in the mid-50s. I think Robert Mulligan was the director. It's really good, though. I'd never heard of it before. Just last night, I wound up on Turner Classic Movies, and I was like, Anthony Perkins, Karl Malden. Okay, I'll give it a shot. I wound up really enjoying it. And Karl Malden plays the father, and he was really damn good. Anthony Perkins was really good. No surprise there. But yeah, Karl Malden, really subtle. Really brings a lot of dimension to to the character of the father. You know, there's levels to it. There's layers to it. You know, he's a perfectionist. He demands the most out of his son, but also at the same time, he really loves him and he doesn't see what he's doing to him. Really interesting movie. I liked it quite a bit. Fear Strikes Out. If you've never heard of it, maybe worth checking out. But yeah, Karl Malden, damn good actor, damn fine actor, as I'm discovering. And yeah, there's still a lot of like Elia Kazan and Marlon Brando that I have yet to see, like Streetcar Named Desire, stuff like that. There's a lot I need to catch up on. Cinnamon Sand, speaking of overrated directors, Nolan is too, in my humble opinion. His films are not bad, but he's not the genius some say he is. I'm kind of with you on there, but I don't know. I've been turning around on Nolan lately. I think after I saw Interstellar, I loved that movie so much that I was kind of like, okay, I kind of see what people are saying now. I wasn't huge on the Batman movies, but Interstellar I thought was pretty good. Haven't seen Dunkirk yet, so can't comment on that one. I've heard mixed things about that one. Some people loved it. Some people thought it was okay. I'd rather see it for myself before I say anything about it. Yeah, I think he has a pretty strong body of work out there. His Batman movies really are probably the best Batman films. Memento is excellent. Yeah, Interstellar I thought was pretty great. One of the best sci-fi movies of recent years. Prestige, pretty underrated one. Wasn't there another one he did with Al Pacino? What was that one called? Insomnia. That was a good one too. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I did feel he was really overrated for the longest time, but I don't know. I'm kind of coming around. I'm kind of starting to see the genius there. Not quite all the way there, but, you know, I'm starting to see it. Let's see. Okay, Jack Shakudi. Yeah, I agree with what you say about Fincher and Hitchcock too, but both have made some of my favorite films, so I'm not completely taken out of their work. Hey, that's fair enough. I mean, it's all about what the films do for you, you know? And I can certainly see why people respect a director like Hitchcock or Nolan. And both, yeah, even though I'm kind of reluctant to really embrace their work, they both have like made really good movies that I have certainly enjoyed. Psycho, I think, is a really good one from Hitchcock. And Fincher, yeah, definitely Seven, The Game, Zodiac, Fight Club. I've enjoyed all of those as well. So, you know, it's not like I hate their work. It's just always kind of been, I've never really loved it as much as so many other people seem to love their work. You know, my reaction just tends to be a bit more lukewarm in general, but it's definitely not negative. My opinion on their films is not negative. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. Alejandro Moncrief. Actually, Nolan won me over with The Prestige, which I think is an underrated gem. You only need Bowie playing Tesla, and I'm sold. I concur. Bowie as Tesla, what more could you want out of a movie? He was great. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting, like, strange, clever movie, too. He's a very smart writer. He's a very smart, original writer. And yeah, typically does really surprise you with the risks he takes in his storytelling. So I got to give him credit for that. I just remembered Inception. That was the other one he did fairly recently. I wasn't big on Inception. I have to admit, I wasn't very big on Inception. But a lot of other people really loved it. I wasn't too crazy about it, but you know, he's done other stuff that I have liked. Let's see. Yeah, Cinnamon San, I enjoyed The Prestige too, as I did with most of his other movies, but his triple twists are beginning to be too much for me. All right, fair enough. And Jack, I'm a fan of Nolan. Dunkirk especially reminded me why I love him. Okay, so you were a fan of Dunkirk then. Haven't seen it yet. I want to, though. Let's see. Cinnamon San. Ooh, he wants to be so smart, but also is explaining too much to the audience. Yeah, okay, I guess I can see where you're coming from there. But I think just that's part of the territory because of the level he works at. He is trying to make very intelligent movies, and I think he is a very intelligent guy. But at the same time, he's working at a scale that really has to have, when you're spending that much money, you know, when you're making movies this big, you really do have to try and give them, it's just the obligation of the industry. You have to try and give them as broad an appeal as you possibly can. So I think it is a situation where he's trying to make very intelligent, almost like art house movies, but he's trying to make them for a wide audience. He's trying to make them, you know, accessible entertainments. So it's kind of a situation, I think, where he does have to really try to meet the audience as much as he can. But I think he does it well. My dad's working out in the garage. I don't know if you can hear that. But yeah, I think he does have to try and take a lot of it to the audience just to make sure, you know, none of the masses are being lost. But, you know, I think he does it well. That's my feeling on it, at least. Let's see. Zach Hayes. Oh, On the Waterfront was one of the first films with the widescreen aspect ratio. I think I saw it in 1:6:6, but you can watch all the different ones with Criterion. You can, yeah. I think they have like 3 different aspect ratios on their Blu-ray release. There's 1:33, which is full screen. There's 1:6:6, which is European widescreen, and then I think there's 1:8:5, which is American widescreen. They got all of them on there because why not? I haven't watched all the different ones yet. I think, what have I seen? Probably 1:33. I don't remember, but it is a good movie though. In any aspect ratio, it's a good movie. Zach Hayes. Nolan's first film, Following, is actually pretty good, but I was infuriated by the end in a good way. Interesting. I think Following, what? I do. I have Following on Blu-ray. I still haven't watched it yet. I might need to get around to that fairly soon. Volsticks. I think Nolan is very overrated. Okay. Memento was brilliant. Then he got huge budgets and not totally convinced. I did enjoy Prestige and Interstellar though. Still think he's overrated. all right, you know, that's fine. Yeah, I kind of already stated my opinions. You know, I was I was kind of with you there for a while, but I think especially after Interstellar, yeah, I've been turning around. I've been coming around on his work. Oh, and Volsticks, Hitchcock's Rope is one of my favorite films. Okay, so yeah, some Hitchcock stuff. I did see Rope. It's an interesting experiment. It wasn't one I was crazy about, but I will say it's definitely, for the 50s of doing a movie like all in real time like that in seemingly one continuous shot, that's a very interesting experiment. Didn't entirely work for me, but it is a very memorable, very interesting experiment. Zach Hayes, the commentary on Following was actually pretty interesting. Yeah, Nolan, that's why I say I think he is a really smart guy, because you listen to his commentaries, he is somebody that does seem to think very in depth and very carefully about the stories he tells and the way he tells them. For anybody interested, you know, in the filmmaking process, I actually highly recommend, if you see the movie Insomnia, the Al Pacino one, the commentary on that one is very interesting because it's a production continuity commentary, which that's basically, when you listen to Chris Nolan's commentary, the movie is actually, it's not in chronological order. It's actually reordered in production order. So it's basically like the order that everything was shot in. So like if they shoot like an insert, you know, first day, like you'll get that small little piece at the beginning. And then next day, you know, they shot a major scene, then you get that. Then the next day they shot the ending, you get that. It's all in production order, the order that they actually shot the movie in, day by day during the schedule. And he does a commentary saying like, yeah, this is why we shot this on this day. Then we came to this location. Yeah, we only had like 5 hours to shoot this scene. So this is kind of why I made this choice. It's actually really interesting and really informative if you're an aspiring filmmaker. It's a really interesting commentary to listen to. So I recommend checking that one out for anybody interested in just the actual physical process of making a movie, you know, day by day on set, and the choices you have to make and the things you have to deal with. It's really interesting. I kind of wish like more commentaries would be done like that. It's really cool. Cinnamon San, I am not embracing of Hitchcock either, but loved Psycho. So I am with you there, disregarding Henry. Okay, glad to hear it. Yeah, Psycho, it's yeah, I think whether you like Hitchcock or not, Psycho is a pretty damn good movie. It's a pretty bold, um, pretty shocking movie in a lot of ways with great acting, and yeah, one of the best center like middle twists in any movie ever. And yeah, Anthony Perkins is so good. Janet Leigh is so good. It's just a really solid movie all around. Yeah, it's certainly most of my problems with Hitchcock are in kind of like other movies. Psycho, yeah, I really don't have many problems with. I think that's a pretty solid film, except for that like that whole ending where they explain everything. That's kind of like, but I'm not the only one who feels that way. Even people who love that movie oftentimes bring up like, yeah, that whole explanation at the end, like, it could have been gone. Let's see. Alejandro Moncrief. Inception is good, but it owes it all to Paprika by Satoshi Kon. With you there. Paprika is a masterpiece. I love Paprika. That's a great one. Yeah, Inception was just too, like, you know, too many machine guns, too many. I don't know. There were some cool action sequences where they're going around the room and they're floating everywhere, but I don't know. Just the car chases and the shootouts and everything, I didn't find very interesting. Paprika to me was really great. That was like pure filmmaking all the way through. I love Paprika. Satoshi Kon, yeah, that's probably his masterpiece. Alejandro Moncrief. Oh yeah, just like Black Swan and Perfect Blue. Yeah, Black Swan. I don't know. I've never quite seen that. I guess I think Black Swan does have similarities to Perfect Blue. Like even Requiem for a Dream has similarities to Perfect Blue. Darren Aronofsky, he recreated a shot in Requiem for a Dream from Perfect Blue when the lead character in Perfect Blue, she's like in a tub and she's kind of like curled up in a fetal position, and you just see her kind of like staring blankly underwater, and then she suddenly like screams out while she's underwater. That scene is recreated in Requiem for a Dream with Jennifer Connelly. So I mean, he's been referencing and paying homage to that film for a long time. And Black Swan, you know, it definitely has similarities. I don't think, you know, it's a straight ripoff though. I think it's just a movie that has similarities, probably deliberate similarities to Perfect Blue, because it's obvious Aronofsky really likes that movie. That's me though. Let's see. Cinnamon San. Dunkirk, I loved mostly for the cinematic experience. Curious if it will hold up on TV. Yeah, I'm curious about that too. I really wanted to see it in 70 millimeter. I didn't get a chance, so I'm probably going to see it on Blu-ray or something. And yeah, I'm curious. Will it have the same impact? Although I didn't see Interstellar in theaters, I still thought that was amazing. So maybe it might be pretty good even on Blu-ray. We'll find out. Let's see. Jack Nolan has said that Paprika is one of his favorite films. Okay, so there you go. It's also I remember reading somewhere that Inception is like eerily similar to, what was it? A Scrooge McDuck comic book. It's basically like exactly the same, like his memory of his wife. Oh gosh, what else? I don't remember. It's like a Donald Duck comic or a Scrooge McDuck comic. It's basically like the plot of Inception, but like 30, 40 years before Inception. Like, it's bizarre how close it is. I remember reading that. I don't remember all the similarities, but I remember that actually was an element of the story, is that, you know, he's got his memory of his dead wife that is like following him the whole time. So it's like, it's really interesting of all the places, you know, to draw Inception from. Like, wow, a Donald Duck comic? That's very surprising. Let's see. Oh, Zach Hayes. I didn't know that about the Insomnia commentary. I'll have to pick it up again. Insomnia doesn't seem to be that rewatchable to me, but I've only seen it once. The commentary will make me go back. Thanks. Yeah, it's a cool one. I liked it. And yeah, I should probably, yeah, since we're at the end of the chat here, I should probably try to talk about Logan again, hey, the other movie that is in the title for the video. But yeah, Logan, So yeah, I did manage to establish that I am not the only person that waited a long time to finally watch Logan. But yeah, I did finally watch it. I remember this was one my brother saw in theaters and was telling me it's really good. You should go see it. It's really good. Even if you don't like superhero movies, it's a really good one. You'll still like it. And yeah, of course, yeah, I'm really stubborn about this stuff. It's like, no, 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 no. I'm not interested in Marvel and comic book stuff and superhero stuff. I don't need to see it. But yeah, this was just one that I kept hearing really good things about it. Oh, you don't want to be spoiled on Logan? Okay. I'll try not to spoil anything if you decide to stick around, but I'm going to try not to spoil anything. But yeah, if you don't want to know anything about it, yeah, I guess I can understand. But yeah, I kept hearing such good things about Logan that it was really, it was something that that really pushed the comic book movie in a different direction, that really tried something really daring and different. So it's kind of like, all right, fine, I'll give it a shot. I'm trying to be more open-minded, and trying to, I don't know, at least cautiously branch out, into seeing some of the new superhero stuff. So I was like, okay, Logan, almost universally praised, so let's give it a shot. And I'm glad I did, because Logan actually is very, very good. I'm pleased to say it actually is very, very good. Even for me, who at this point is so sick of seeing superhero movies, I have to say Logan is a cut above the rest. It's very, very well done. It really stands out. It's really different. It's much harder edged, much more grounded in character and drama and thematic weight. And it's just an incredibly well-made movie. And weirdly similar, because I talked about Brawl and Cell Block 99. I was thinking about this earlier. They're weirdly similar movies in a lot of ways. They both owe a great debt, to the Western, kind of like the archetypes of the Western. They're both, very masculine. They're both about sacrifice. They're both brutally violent, and they actually both feature a scene where the main character beats up a vehicle. So very cool, very coincidental how similar these movies are in a lot of ways. I didn't realize this until after I'd seen them both. I was like, that's kind of funny. But they're also both very good. Yeah, Logan almost right away. I was really surprised. The tone that director James Mangold sets for it, like the grittiness, the violence, and the take on the character, it's so different, and it's so well done. It's so committed to what it is that even from the very first scene, you're kind of like, wow, holy shit, this is definitely going in a new direction. Because Logan, he's in pretty bad shape, and they're not holding back on the fact that he's kind of this sort of animalistic character, with claws, and that he kills people. There's some pretty graphic violence in this movie, and all of it's pretty brutal, pretty hard hitting. There is blood, limbs get cut off, there's dismemberment. It's the real deal this time around. And it opens, with an action scene that just kind of right off sets the tone, tells you okay, this is what we're doing. You're either going to be with us or you want to get out right now. And I was sort of worried, just from seeing the trailers, because of course they have to market it as an action movie. I was worried because basically the concept, or what the story is he kind of discovers this little girl that has powers very similar to his own, and he's kind of against his will, kind of made into her protector. He's got to get her, to this. I don't know how much I want to say, but basically, it's kind of a road movie. He's got to. There are people after this little girl for reasons I won't reveal, and he kind of ends up inadvertently becoming her protector, and he has to get her, to a safe location. So it's kind of just about it's a road movie, just kind of about their journey together and their process, of bonding, him becoming a protector, finding, a renewed purpose in his life. And yeah, just trying to, getting older, his powers starting to fail him. And yeah, just kind of trying to squeeze one last sense of meaning and purpose at the end of his life. It's an elegiac film for, the character of Wolverine, for the X-Men franchise, for the superhero movie. It's kind of like, okay, we're laying the previous things, we're laying all of that to rest. And after this, it's going to be different. It seems to be very self-aware in that way. And it kind of puts a lot of weight on its own shoulders of saying, like, we're going to do something really big and really daring with this, and it's going to be final. This isn't going to be a new franchise. Like, we're going to close a chapter with this movie. And they do it pretty well. Like, they actually meet the challenge that they set for themselves, and I was really impressed. But I was saying, like, with the trailers, because, yeah, the little girl that he's protecting and taking with him, that he's traveling with, she has powers similar to his own. And you see in the trailer, all the bits of her, like, flipping around and killing guys. I was kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe it'll have a good story, maybe it'll have good characters, but, like, I just worry that the action scenes are going to be too over the top, that it's just going to, throw action scenes in there just for the sake of having action scenes. And I got to say, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that it didn't really do that. All of the action, I felt, really evolved organically out of the story. It set everything up properly. It said, like, okay, this is why this is happening. This action scene emerges out of this situation, and it leads to this next piece of the story. It all served a purpose, and it was all very well done. Of course, it's an X-Men movie, so of course it's going to have great fights and great choreography and great cinematography and great special effects, only a lot more bloody and vicious this time around. But it's all really good. And they actually find ways of bringing a lot of variety to it as well. My favorite action scene actually was one that it isn't even really a fast or brutal action scene. It's just kind of a scene where everyone, I don't want to spoil it, but it's basically a scene where everyone is kind of like frozen in place. And the whole way that plays out, I thought, was very different. I'd never really seen an action scene like that, but I actually thought it was very tense and very effective and very memorable. So yeah, there's some good action scenes in there. I was thinking that it was going to be a lot more over the top, with the little girl kind of flying all over the place, but it's just, a few bits here and there. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to accept that because I'm actually invested in their relationship and kind of what this is leading to. But yeah, it's very good. It actually makes this character Wolverine, it gives him depth. It makes him human. It makes him, interesting and vulnerable, and really gets you invested in the character that I don't really feel like I've really felt from a superhero movie since, like, the earliest ones, like the original X-Men movies, which were some of the first of, like, the modern superhero era, or like Spider-Man movies like that, that were really good because they were so different. We'd never really seen superhero movies like that before. And then it just kind of became the industry standard. So now it's actually interesting to see that the genre, I think it knows it's starting to wear thin. And so new directors are coming along that I think are conscious of the fact that, like, we have to try to revitalize this in some way. We have to try and give it a new spin. We have to try and give it new blood. And Logan, I think, really succeeds in doing that. It's really good. It's an exciting, big, entertaining action movie, but it's also a really well done, really well acted. Like, Hugh Jackman, his performance is amazing. Patrick Stewart as an elderly and also, a kind of dying version of Professor Xavier. His health, his mind are starting to fail him. Brings really new, interesting dimensions to these characters. And yeah, the actors, Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman, yeah, they really get a chance to actually, to not just, play these really well-established characters and kind of just do the same thing over again. It's like they're really challenged now. They're really pushed into new places, and they really commit to it, and they really rise to the occasion. So yeah, some great acting, some really great storytelling and character work, gets you invested in the drama, and also has really bloody great action scenes too. So I have to say, I was impressed. Logan really lived up to the hype, I'm glad to say. And actually kind of gives me renewed interest in the superhero genre. I'm actually curious to see. I'm actually curious to see where it goes from here. You know, because I think now the industry is at a point where they're realizing, okay, we can't just keep doing the same stuff. We'll take a chance on an R-rated superhero movie, which paid off. We'll take a chance, you know, on different kinds of heroes, like with Wonder Woman, that paid off. So it's like, okay, what comes next now? What do you do, to continue revitalizing the genre? How is it going to continue to innovate? Because, you know, it seems like the superhero stuff, the franchises, they're here to stay. So now it's a question of, how do they continue to revitalize themselves? How do they continue to stay relevant and continue drawing people in? And Logan, I think, is an attempt to answer that question, and it's a very good answer to that question, I have to say. As somebody who was initially, who really enjoyed like the first few superhero movies, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and Bryan Singer's X-Men. I'm trying to think what else there was, like the Blade movies, Guillermo del Toro, his Blade 2, his Hellboy movies are excellent. And then it just became a thing where they started just becoming more homogenized, more uniform, and it just became boring. And I just sort of lost interest at that point. But now some interesting ones are coming along, like Logan, or like, say, Deadpool or Thor Ragnarok, that seem like, okay, this actually seems like it's really trying to be different, that it's really trying to be its own thing. So it's like, okay, we're starting to see some revitalization happening in the genre, which is interesting. You know, whether you like it or not, it's like this will be known as the era of superhero movies. You know, 10, 20 years from now, whenever this era ends, like, we're going to look back on it and say, like, okay, this was the era where that happened. And this was the point, where things changed and went into a new direction. So that's interesting to see. And even beyond just its possible historical significance in the industry, Logan's just a really good movie. You know, I enjoyed it. I got invested. You know, I was moved by it, which I'm very glad I can say that. It's good. If you haven't seen it, you probably should. Even if you're totally sick of superhero movies, like me at this point, this one is so well done that it'll probably win you over. It's that good. So I'm happy to be able to say that, and I'm glad I finally went into it and got to experience it. So we'll see where the genre goes from here now, like what the next innovation is going to be if it comes along. Now I'm going through the chat here, see what we got. Oh, Zach Hayes, Aronofsky has the film rights to Perfect Blue, so he can kind of do what he wants with it. So it seems, he can rip it off as much as he wants because he owns it now. Be interesting to see if he ever like actually remade it or did a live action version of it. Cinnamon saying, damn, now I have to see Logan too. You'll probably enjoy it if you haven't seen it yet. Or at least, I don't know what your feelings are on superhero movies, but even if you don't like them, you'll probably like Logan. You probably will, which is nice to be able to say. Volsticks. Because actually the X-Men movies, they have been pretty consistently good. The first two, I think, still are really excellent movies. And the third one, obviously a step down in quality, but not bad either. There's a lot of really interesting social commentary in all of those movies. I didn't really see any of the others after that. I didn't see First Class. I didn't see Origins. I didn't see The Wolverine. I didn't see Days of Future Past. I've seen pieces of Days of Future Past. And what I did see, I actually thought was pretty interesting. I saw one scene where like there's one mutant who's basically like the X-Men version of the Flash. He's just really fast. He can move really fast. There's a whole sequence, a whole set piece where he's like running around a room where like security guards have stopped like Wolverine and young Xavier and Magneto. And it's like right as they open fire, like this guy just starts running around the room and rearranging everything and moving the bullets out of the way, getting the guards to like knock themselves out. And it's like the whole way it's staged, the whole way it's shot, and the musical choice that it's set to. I remember thinking, even without seeing the rest of the movie, I was like, that's a really good sequence. That's a really clever, really different, really well done, well executed action sequence that isn't just, two characters punching each other or Wolverine, slashing some guards. It's got a really cool concept behind it that they executed in a really interesting way. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to see the rest of this now. I still haven't. For better or for worse, I don't know how good the rest of the movie is, but I will say, like, that one sequence sticks out in my memory because I remember my brother watched all of the X-Men movies before he went to go see Logan. So I saw like pieces of different ones that I'd never seen before, and I saw that piece of Days of Future Past, and I was like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool sequence. I might have to watch this one. And I haven't seen Apocalypse either. So I just kind of jumped right into Logan, and I guess for me, I wasn't lost. It's a pretty well self-contained movie. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. It doesn't feel like it's the tail end of something else. It works really well on its own. So I was glad to see that. I think the X-Men movies have maintained a pretty consistent quality. Most of the recent ones I haven't seen. Volstix, they're rebooting Hellboy with an R rating. Not sure how I feel about Hellboy without Guillermo del Toro, but it's the same guy who directed The Descent. So I don't know, might be decent. Yeah, I gotta say that that irks me as well. Hellboy without Guillermo del Toro, without Ron Perlman. I don't know if I want to see that, but the guy who's doing it, I think his name is Neil Marshall. He is a good director, so maybe we'll see. I can't say I'm too excited. I can't say I'm looking forward to that one, but we'll try to be hopeful here. We'll try to be positive. Volstix again. I must admit, I cried like a baby at the end of Logan. Cheaply won emotion, I know, but it worked. Damn you. Was it cheaply won? I don't know. If a movie actually does something to get you invested in a character, like, I don't know. Can you dismiss that as cheaply won emotion? I'm not sure, because the actors were committed, the director was committed, like, they were giving it their all. I felt like they were really sincerely giving it their all. So if it wins your emotion, I don't know if that's a cheap victory. It's maybe just a victory. It actually it got some real tears out of you, and that's a good thing, I think. Zach Hayes, I'm curious to see the black and white noir version of Logan and to see the bonus features. I like the film, but I would say it's super enjoyable, pretty dark, depressing for these types of films. Yes, definitely that it was. And yeah, there is a black and white version, Logan Noir, which is an interesting idea. I'd kind of like to see that as well. The black and white seems to be making a comeback because they did that with Mad Max as well, the black and chrome edition of Mad Max Fury Road. I'd be curious to see both of those kinds of like really stark kinds of movies. It seems like black and white would be very appropriate for those kinds of stories, Let's see. Oh, Jack, I decided to stick around. I do really want to see Logan, though. Well, hopefully I didn't spoil anything major for you. I hope not. But yeah, glad you stuck around. Let's see, Volstix. If I don't come back in the chat, I wish you all the best. Oh, for your job interview? Hope it goes really well for you, man. Cheers, Henry. Job interview? Oh, it's actually not a job interview. It's a show interview. It's an interview for the show. I'm interviewing somebody for the show. It's not a job interview. I'm sorry if that was unclear. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Volstix. Glad you could be here. And Cinnamon Sand, should you have seen the other movies to appreciate Logan? I kind of addressed that earlier, but I don't think so. I think it's a pretty well self-contained movie. You know, it's got a whole complete story in there. You maybe need to have seen at least one or two of the others. Like, I only really saw the first three, so I knew the characters, I knew the background. I don't think, at least from where I was sitting, there didn't seem to really be a lot of reference to like the most recent movies. So there was never any point where I was lost where they were talking about something where I was like, wait, when did that happen? I think it's all pretty well just contained to just this movie. As long as you know Wolverine, you know Xavier, you know what the X-Men are, then I feel like that's enough to really be able to clearly follow everything that's happening, for me at least. But you might have to talk to my brother, or I might have to ask him. I don't know what it really adds, like watching all of them. Maybe it serves to increase your emotional investment, following the character, following the series through all of that. I'm sure that does add a more of a level of investment to it. But for me, I think the movie is strong enough even just on its own. Jack, Guardians of the Galaxy was decent. Still haven't seen that one. Not sure when I'll watch it. I don't know, but I might one of these days. We'll see. And Jack also says First Class was surprisingly great. Okay. Yeah, I've been surprised. Just the bits I've seen of like what was the one I said? Days of Future Past. Yeah, seeing the bits of that, I was like, this actually looks pretty good. I'm trying to think if I saw anything of First Class. I don't think I did. I think I also saw bits of Wolverine. And I actually didn't think that one looked very good. And I've actually seen a few chunks of X-Men Origins. That one actually looked pretty bad. But okay. I don't think I've seen anything of First Class. But if you say it's good, okay, that makes me interested. Oh, in that case too, I enjoyed First Class. Okay. But I didn't care for Days of Future Past. Interesting. Besides for parts of it, and I've heard Apocalypse was pretty bad, so I skipped it. Okay. And Jack, I want to see the other X-Men movies before Logan. Fair enough. I can certainly understand that. That was the way my brother did it, and it seemed to work for him. He was, definitely saying it was really something to experience that movie after kind of going through all of the other films and following the characters, through their ups and downs and through the adventures, and then kind of, getting to that period at the end of the sentence. He was really raving about it. So I'm sure that probably does add something to it. But like I said, of just kind of going from basically the first three and then just jumping right into Logan, I didn't feel lost at all. And I still thought it worked pretty well. Let's see. Zach Hayes, Hellboy has one of the actors from Stranger Things. I'm guessing the new one, the new Hellboy, the cop to be specific, and he looks amazing as Hellboy, so I'm interested. I like the actor as well. Okay. Again, not familiar with Stranger Things, so I have no investment in that regard. But yeah, I don't know. Definitely my knee-jerk reaction is hearing like, okay, we're going to reboot Hellboy. No Ron Perlman, no Guillermo del Toro. My instinctual reaction is just like, ugh, no. But, I try to be open-minded about these things. Maybe it'll do something interesting, something different. Maybe it'll be good. You never know. What's the point in being cynical? Let's have hope for the future, right? And Jack. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Since you love Del Toro, what did you think of Pacific Rim? I personally hated it. Ouch. I do love Del Toro. I think every movie he's done has been really, really good. I love the 3 Spanish language movies he's done. I think those are his best works. Kronos, Devil's Backbone, masterpiece, and Pan's Labyrinth, another masterpiece. Both Hellboy movies I think are very good. Mimic, I actually think is pretty surprisingly good. Blade 2 I think is a lot of fun. What else has he done? Crimson Peak I actually really liked. I thought that one was pretty underrated. Kind of like I guess like It Comes at Night, you know, where it was maybe just marketed in the wrong way of trying to say like it's this kind of movie when really it's a different kind of movie. Because Crimson Peak is not a horror movie, it's a gothic romance. So that gives you a whole different set of expectations than I think most people had going into it, where it's like, I want it to be scary, I want it to be about ghosts popping out and surprising me. It's really not that. It's a romance. It's a tragic gothic romance. So you really have to approach it in that way. But it's a really great example of that kind of genre of filmmaking or storytelling. Pacific Rim, though, I will say is my least favorite of his. It wasn't one that I was as enthusiastic about as I have been with his other movies. I'm not a big fan of kaiju films and like mecha films, you know, stuff like that. I have enjoyed, you know, some of them, like some of the Godzilla movies I've had a good time with. But I think really with kaiju films, it really has to be something that I think it has to be really something connected with your childhood. You know, it has to be, you kind of have to grow up watching Godzilla movies, and you kind of have to have like this nostalgic fondness for seeing giant monsters and giant robots do battle. And I don't really have that level of nostalgia for that kind of stuff. I can enjoy it, and I thought Pacific Rim was a very well done example of that kind of genre. But personally, it didn't really do a lot for me. You know, I could appreciate, again, how much detail, you know, Guillermo del Toro puts into these stories, into his creatures, into his world building of giving it, you know, texture and layers and background and, you know, kind of all this stuff happening, you know, just everywhere in the frame. And there's yeah, such a careful attention to detail everywhere, really trying to create these worlds that live and breathe. And yeah, just putting a level of thought and creation and process in it that is really extraordinary, that most directors typically don't really do, or that they don't do as well as Guillermo del Toro does it. So there was that element to it that I really did enjoy, of, you know, getting to see the attention to detail on the monsters, or, you know, when you're in the laboratory of the scientists who are studying the kaiju, you're seeing all the things in the jars and all the little, you know, references and, you know, movie things and movie geek stuff and monster geek stuff that is happening everywhere. It's a movie made with a lot of love, I think, a lot of love and affection. And that's what I can always enjoy about a Guillermo del Toro movie, is that he's always sincere, he's always genuine, he's never cynical, he's never doing anything, you know, for a paycheck or, you know, to further his career. Everything he does because he genuinely loves it and he genuinely wants to do it. So I certainly have a lot of respect for that, and that certainly grants me the ability to, up to a certain point, enjoy a movie like Pacific Rim. But ultimately, you know, I didn't really get invested all that much in the story. I did feel it was a little bit long. It's like 132 minutes. I wasn't quite, you know, with it all the way through there. I didn't find the characters all that interesting. So, I mean, just of his work that I've seen, which I think I've seen everything except for the new one, Shape of Water, which I'm very excited for. I've been hearing great things about it. Of his work, I think it's probably the weakest. It's been my least favorite. But even saying that, I don't think it's a horrible movie. You know, I certainly don't think, you know, I wouldn't call it a bad film. I would call it a very well put together movie that, I don't know, just ultimately didn't really do a lot for me, you know. I don't really have that basis of nostalgia for kaiju stuff and mecha stuff. And I don't know, the reliance on, because I know Guillermo del Toro does this very deliberately, of relying on cliches and relying on, I guess, tropes in his storytelling methods. He does that very consciously, and tries to use those devices in a sincere way and try to reinvigorate them in different ways. And he has talked in interviews and on his commentary on the Blu-ray about how Pacific Rim was modeled after sports movies. It's about the rise and the fall and the rise. It's about the football hero that fails and stumbles, who comes back. It's a comeback story, like a classic sports movie, and he does that very deliberately, very consciously. But it just felt, for me, it felt too familiar. It didn't really draw me in. It didn't really work for me. I could appreciate the how well made it was, but ultimately I didn't really care that much. So I'm sad to say that. But yeah, for me, it's been his weakest film. That's the way I reacted to it. What do we got on? Yeah, Jack did. Yeah, you did say you hated Pacific Rim. Let's see. Zach Hayes. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't bad, but it has a lot of the superhero tropes. They try to cover them up with jokes, it felt like. Yeah, it did seem like Guardians of the Galaxy was going much more in a comedic direction, more of a kind of a self-aware direction. Which that's that can be good or bad depending on your taste, in those kinds of, in that kind of tone and those kinds of movies. And Jack, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't great, but a lot better than the other Marvel stuff. Okay, yeah, I do know there are some people that really love that movie. I've talked to a couple people who are really into the Marvel stuff, which is perfectly fine. If it's your thing, then great. If you get a lot of enjoyment out of it, a lot of pleasure out of it, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with enjoying Marvel movies or superhero movies. If you like it, great. There's nothing wrong with liking something. It's just personally not really my thing. But yeah, the people I've talked to who are really into the Marvel stuff seem to have all really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the second one. They really have enjoyed those two movies. Zach Hayes, I actually liked Pacific Rim for the most part, from what I remember. It's what Transformers kind of should have been. That is a very good point. You want to put Pacific Rim side by side with Transformers. Pacific Rim is miles better than Transformers. You have to give it credit for that, at the very least. Even if you don't enjoy it, you have to give it credit for that. It's so much better than Transformers. It really is. Let's see. Oh yeah, Zach Hayes. It's not perfect by any means. I just wanted to see giant things fighting. Yes, and if that's what you want to see, Pacific Rim really delivers on that. It's got some great fights in it. Again, yeah, maybe a little too long, little on the long side, but you get to see giant things fighting, and if that's what you want to see, you get to see it. So there you go, right? Jack. Also, I'd like to mention Del Toro really likes the film Spring, a film I recommended. Other people here also recommended the director's other film, Resolution. Yes, I remember that. I have that written down. Was it Resolution? Yeah, Resolution. Where is it? I'm losing track of everything now. I know I have Resolution written down here somewhere, and I do have Spring written down. Yeah, I remember that. The same directors. Spring. It's a horror movie, right? But yeah, I have both of those written down, so I will try to see those as soon as I can. Zach Hayes. The Shape of Water looks like what should have happened with the creature from the Black Lagoon, and he's kind of hinted towards it. A fish monster that falls in love with a human. That's all I need to sell me. And Zach Hayes, I actually kind of hated Guardians of the Galaxy too. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, from what I've heard, most people seem to have really liked it. Yeah, but again, I haven't seen either of them, so I couldn't even begin to guess what it is you didn't like. But yeah, Shape of Water, I've been hearing great things about. I'm very excited for it. Really want to see it. And it looks like it's getting the proper marketing too. It looks like it's a love story, and it's being marketed as a love story, not a weird creature film, a love story. So yeah, I'm hoping that one lives up to the hype. I'm really excited for it. Oh, and Jack, Pacific Rim is definitely better than Transformers. I was just really annoyed by Pacific Rim. What was it that annoyed you? Was it the story? Was it the characters? What was it? Because I really wanted to like it a lot more than I did. Because like I had been watching like Pan's Labyrinth and all of Del Toro's previous movies a lot at that time, and I was really getting hooked on his stuff. And I remember Pacific Rim, yeah, the year it came out, I was really excited for it. And I was actually working at a movie theater at the time, so I got to go see it for free. I saw it in 2D and in 3D. And I remember both times I was really knocked out by the visuals, but both times, like, I just couldn't really get invested in the story or the characters, you know? So seeing it the one time, I was wanting it so badly to be good, and it wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. So I was like, what, did I miss something? It was like Phantom Menace syndrome, you know, when everybody saw Phantom Menace for the first time. It's like, I must have missed something, right? Like, that was great, wasn't it? I just didn't, I missed it, right? I missed all the great stuff. So you go see it again, it's like, okay, I need to pay attention now and really try to find the things I missed. I did that with Pacific Rim before I finally realized, like, oh, okay, I don't like this as much as his other movies. It's not a bad movie, I just don't like it as much as Pan's Labyrinth or Hellboy or the other stuff, you know? So maybe that kind of skews my opinion, too, of just expecting too much out of it. You know, wanting Pan's Labyrinth out of this giant monster movie, which it isn't Pan's Labyrinth. So I don't know. It's one I got on Blu-ray, you know, regardless. And like, I listened to Guillermo del Toro's commentary. I watched the behind-the-scenes stuff, which is always great because he puts, again, so much work and so much detail in all of his films. And that gives you much more of an appreciation for it, you know, seeing all of that stuff that goes into it and seeing, you know, his incredible eye, you know, for creating worlds like that and creating creatures. That definitely gave me much more of an appreciation for it. But still, you know, I have to admit, you know, it's my least favorite of his works. Jack, Spring is more of a romance than a horror film. Okay, that's good to know before I go into it. Resolution isn't that much of a horror movie either, in my opinion. Okay, because I think I looked both of them up, and it was saying like they were both horror movies. So it's good to know beforehand that, yeah, I need to adjust my expectations in that way. Zach Hayes. Guillermo del Toro is pretty clear with his visions. You either go with his films or you don't, if that makes sense. Yeah, he's not somebody that really tries to hide what it is that he's doing. You know, any genre, any kind of story that he's telling, he just fully embraces it. If he's telling a giant monster movie, he tells a giant monster movie. If he's making a gothic romance, he makes a gothic romance. No irony, no self-reference. It's just, this is a straight-faced gothic romance. If he's making a vampire movie, he makes a full-on vampire movie. A ghost story, he makes a ghost story, you know? Yeah, he's really not somebody that tries to hide his intentions, you know, or that tries to put on layers, or, you know, tries to put on an act or anything, saying like, no, this is all ironic, I'm not taking it seriously, I'm presenting it in a way that's askew or different. It's just like, no, this is the movie I'm making, this is the story I'm telling, I'm gonna do it full on, straight-faced. You either like it or you don't, you know? So I think I agree with what you're saying there. You know, he's just like, this is a gothic romance. You can either take it or leave it. If you want a ghost story, you want something else, that's not what this is. And I'm not going to shy away from that, which is one thing I definitely really appreciate about his works, is that there is no irony. You know, he just goes at it with everything he has in every movie. I feel like not enough directors really do that anymore. I think people, at least for a while maybe, have become a little bit afraid to do things sincerely. You've got to do it ironically. You've got to do it self-referentially. I really appreciate it more and more now when I see directors that aren't afraid to just say, like, no, we're just doing this. This is what it is. We're doing it straight-faced, no irony. We're just going to do it. I'm finding that I like that, and I appreciate that more and more and more as time goes on, as things do become more and more ironic and self-referential. I'm cherishing sincerity more and more. Jack, talking about Pacific Rim, I'm guessing. The characters, the dialogue, the story, and the tropes. The amount of CGI kind of made my eyes hurt, even though it looked great. I really need to see more of Del Toro's stuff. I've only seen Pan's Labyrinth, one of my favorites, which is great. Pacific Rim and The Boys Hell. Yeah, and both the Hellboy movies I really like. I think they're both really, really good. Classic, they're superhero movies, but they're also like classic kind of monster movies too. You know, like Frankenstein, stuff like that, where you actually care about the monster. The monster is more human than the human characters. It's really good. And Ron Perlman, yeah, is just magnificent as that character. He's got such humor and swagger, and projects, yeah, all of the emotion through all of that makeup effortlessly. It's pretty great acting, I think. Almost Elephant Man level acting. Like, remember how good John Hurt was in Elephant Man? That movie was actually on TCM. I've been watching a lot of Turner Classic Movies lately. Elephant Man was on not too long ago. That movie still makes me cry. John Hurt's performance, you know, just one line of dialogue, one look at the camera, I weep seeing John Hurt's performance in The Elephant Man. It never fails to make me cry. Like Ron Perlman, it's a very different kind of movie, but I think it's a similar kind of achievement of creating such a strong character through all those layers of makeup. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, definitely if you haven't seen Devil's Backbone, you gotta see Devil's Backbone. That's a great one. One of his very best, I think. And Crimson Peak, I think, is worth a look too. Not as good as Devil's Backbone or Pan's Labyrinth, but I think still a really well done gothic romance. And Chronos too. Chronos, I think, is a really innovative take on the vampire story. That's a really good one. So I recommend all of those. Definitely Devil's Backbone, definitely Chronos. And if you like both of those, give Crimson Peak a look too, because I think that's an underrated one. Let's see. Zach Hayes. I just think some of the trailers for Del Toro's films are misled, but I think they got it right for Shape of Water. But it's just kind of hard to market some of his films, it seems. Yeah, because he doesn't really do genres that are in vogue. You know, gothic romances, they aren't, you know, they aren't what everybody's rushing out to see. People are rushing out to see The Conjuring and Annabelle, ghost stories. So you got to market it as a ghost story, which, yeah, just kind of winds up being a disaster in both ways, because people that go in expecting a ghost story don't get a ghost story, and people that might actually want to see something different or see something like a gothic romance don't bother because they just think it's a ghost story. So yeah, marketing can really kind of screw you in that way, especially if you're like Del Toro and you're not just following the trends. You're kind of trying to do your own thing, express yourself as an artist. It's too bad. I really wish Del Toro got more recognition, you know, and more success. I wish he had an easier time in the industry. It kind of breaks my heart. Zach Hayes, I love The Elephant Man. Need to go back to The Elephant Man. It's great. God, I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times now at this point. I still cry. I still weep hysterically every time watching that movie. Never fails. It's incredible. Yeah, the tone it strikes, Lynch's direction, John Hurt's performance, God, just the power there, the heartbreaking humanity. It's overwhelming. That's such a great movie. Cinnamon San, Elephant Man is a masterpiece, really. It is. It definitely is. Jack Chekudi, taken from Del Toro's Twitter. Spring is one of the best horror films of this decade and the only Lovecraftian film that has blown me away. I love it when big directors and people like that love the little films I love. Yeah, Del Toro is he's a full-on film geek. You know, he loves films with such passion, with such abandon. It's inspiring. You know, that he inspires me, you know, to embrace the things I love more and more, you know, not be self-conscious about it, not be so worried about what other people think. You know, if you like a movie that other people don't like as much as you know, that's okay. You should just embrace it. You should just embrace the things you love and cherish the things you love. He's really inspiring to me in that way, because he's such a movie geek, and he's, again, not ironic. You know, he loves the things he loves with unapologetic abandon, and I love that, and that's really inspiring to me, and I try to emulate that a lot. You know, if I love a movie, you know, that maybe not a lot of other people love, I try not to be self-conscious about that. You know, like if it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I'm a big fan of his work. I'm a big fan of Unbreakable, of Signs. I even really like Lady in the Water. And I'm still self-conscious about that, because every time I say, like, you know, Lady in the Water, really good. Devil, the elevator movie, really good. I always get reactions from people like, you're crazy. And I'm trying, to not be so bothered by that, you know. Of course, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that's mine, and I make no apologies. I love M. Night Shyamalan. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I think he's great. What else we got, though? I think we've only got one more comment. I might bring it to a close right here. Zach Hayes, I haven't seen The Devil's Backbone. I have Kronos, but I haven't got around to it yet. Kronos is very different. Is that annoying? Can anyone else hear that? My dad's ripping apart a car right now. He's just out there cutting it to pieces. So I don't know how much of that is getting picked up on the microphone, but I'm sure it's a really nice background noise to have. But Kronos is very different from a lot of Del Toro's other movies, because kind of starting with Mimic, his second movie, he started adopting the style that was much more sumptuous and visual and more elegant, where the camera is kind of like constantly moving, and there's he uses a lot of hidden cuts. You know, the camera will move behind an object that obscures the foreground, and then when it emerges out, like we've kind of switched positions, you know, like we're far away in a master shot, then we move behind like a pillar or something, and then when we come out, we're in a close-up. So kind of just the way the images flow together, you know, in this constant dance, this movement, this elegant movement. Kronos is very different, because like there's basically no camera movement in it. The camera is basically always static. So it feels really different. It feels much more sparse than Del Toro's other work. But I mean, it's got all of the thematic obsessions there. You know, it's got vampires, it's got monsters, it's got tragic humanity, it's got romance, it's got insects and bugs and alchemy. And again, a really wonderful attention to detail. So there's definitely things to really love about Kronos. And I think in a lot of ways it's one of his strongest movies. But again, very different in style. His first feature film. So you can tell he developed in a much different direction after that. But still, really good story. And yeah, a lot of really fascinating themes examined in it. And just great concepts in it. You know, the immortality beetle, the way vampirism is rendered as an addiction. It's all really interesting. And Chaz's Dungeon just popped in as we're winding things down. Just got here. What has been discussed? Well, we talked about Logan. We talked about Brawl and Cell Block 99. Now we're doing a lot of talk about Guillermo del Toro. Yeah. And Chaz's Dungeon, you finally saw Inland Empire, and you're not the same person anymore. It's quite an experience, isn't it? It's been a while since I've seen Inland Empire, but that really is. I think actually I was messaging with you on Facebook, and you were saying like it's the movie that comes the closest to any you've ever seen of replicating a dream. I think that's, probably very true in the way it just kind of flows from place to place. In a way that just seems that just seems so fluid. It's a reality that just seems fluidly changing constantly. But there's definitely some great stuff in there. Even though it's been several years since I've seen it, there are still many things from it that really stick out in my mind. Disturbing images, weird sequences, Harry Dean Stanton, borrowing money from everyone. That whole scene set to that Beck song, Black Tambourine. The images of Laura Dern's face, distorted in these wide-angle close-ups. It's a trip. It's a trip. It takes a lot out of you. It's 3 hours. It's, just a nonsensical nightmare the whole way through. But, it's an experience. It really is. What are people saying about it? Chaz's Dungeon. Inland Empire is one of the best films I've ever seen. It's the closest yet anyone has come to emulating a nightmare. And Jack, easily my favorite from Lynch. Wow. Chaz's Dungeon, same. The twists got me. Cinnamon Sand, same here. Wow. Jack, still scares the shit out of me. Zach Hayes, that Lynch film is pretty crazy. I'll have to go back to that one as well. But it's pretty haunting, so I don't know if I'm ready just yet. Yeah, understandable. And Chaz's Dungeon, I thought I was in the reality of Inland Empire for a while after. That's very cool. Trippy, but it's always cool when a movie can do that. When it can leave lingering effects in your brain. That's always fun. Blade Runner 2049 actually did that to me. It kind of put me in a trance that it took me a little while to snap out of when it was over. But yeah, I love when that happens with films, when they're so evocative that they just transport you. They put your mind in a different plane. I might have to go back to Inland Empire. I think. Do I still own it? I do still have it. Yeah, I do still have the DVD. This is one I've had for years. Kind of forgot it was even still on the shelf. Yeah, I might have to give it another watch though. But yeah, I think that probably basically brings this stream to a close. Sorry, you were just joining us, Chaz's Dungeon. Sorry, it's right at the end here. But yeah, I've got an interview that I'm doing with a Mr. Barrett Wolf. We're talking about a short film he sent me. So we'll be doing that with a lot of drilling in the background through the wall right here. So yeah, that's going to be happening at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for me. I think it's going to be later for him. He's on the East Coast. And yeah, so I think that's about it for this stream. Thank you all for joining me. Oh, what else we got here? Get some more comments. Jack, Inland Empire, talking about first time I saw it, I didn't like it. But over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking of it. So I had to rewatch it. It has been one of my favorite films ever since. Chaz's Dungeon. Those jump scares were intense. And I also watched Possession. Absolutely hilarious. Thank you for motivating me to see that film, Henry. Was that me that told you to see Possession? I didn't realize. I don't remember that. But regardless, you're welcome. I do like Possession. That's I've got that one. I want to do a Henry Recommends video on this one soon. But it's got there's some nipples on the cover here, so I don't know if that's allowed. But yeah, I have Possession. Yeah, this is a weirdly designed Blu-ray. You got like a little strap you pull out there, and then yeah, you got all this stuff. You got the booklet. You got the one disc. Pretty cool though. It's a nice little Blu-ray, and it's the uncut director's cut. It's in the original aspect ratio. Pretty nice. Kind of tricky to maneuver though. But yeah, this is a good one. Underseen one. Yeah, like Chaz's Dungeon said, not people are. I think because it is so intense and it does have a lot of really disturbing imagery in it. It is kind of seen, yeah, more as a horror film, and there are definitely elements of horror. But like Chaz's Dungeon said, there's a lot of comedy too. It's a very funny movie in a lot of ways. It exists at this constant fever pitch of hysteria, and it goes so wildly over the top in so many scenes. It kind of, you just have to see it to believe it. You know, there's not really any way of properly explaining what that movie is or what it's like. There's the only thing I can compare it to is other films by the same director, Andrei Zulovsky. Like, I think I've only seen one other of his movies, Cosmos, his last one in 2015. And yeah, that's the only other movie I've seen that I could even begin to compare to Possession. Of, again, yeah, just being at this constant, nonstop, exhausting fever pitch of hysterical emotion. He was really something else. He passed away, unfortunately, yeah, a couple years ago. But yeah, really created a body of work like no one else's. Possession still, I think, probably, yeah, being his most legendary work. I do want to see some of his other stuff, too, though. Somebody a long time ago told me to watch The Devil, I think it was, from like the 70s. Still haven't been able to find that one, but it's still on the list. We'll see if I can see it. Oh, Jazz's Dungeon. Oh, I realized that the DVD was incredibly difficult to find, so I'm lucky I found the film for cheap. Yeah, that can be tricky. And Mother was similar, although not as outrageous as Possession, in my opinion. And Jack, I really need to see it. Yeah, it's one worth tracking down. It's kind of hard to find, you know, in the original uncut version, in the original aspect ratio, kind of hard to find, but I think worth the effort, worth tracking down. Yeah, if you're willing to go for it. Oh yeah, Jack, haven't been able to find myself a copy though. Yeah, understandable. But yeah, if you can track it down, find a copy like on eBay or something, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, maybe give it a go. Oh, Cinnamon Sand, I have the UK version, but your version has a much better transfer, I believe. Oh, interesting. Good to know, I guess, that I got the better transfer. Haha. Oh, and good luck with your interview. Thank you. Jazz's Dungeon, can't wait to see your interview. Thank you very much. Yeah. Got to get ready for that. That's going to be in about 40 minutes. And yeah, okay. I think that's probably it for this one. Thank you all for joining me. Yeah, if you haven't seen Logan, maybe give that one a look. Brawl in Cell Block 99 is on VOD. Give that one a look too. Again, if you're squeamish to violence, be warned. But if you think you can handle it, if you can handle more extreme kinds of movies, yeah, definitely check out Brawl in Cell Block 99. Give that one a look. Cinnamon Sand, have you seen Cosmos? I did. I just mentioned it. That's the only other Zulovsky film I've seen. And yeah, it's just as extreme, just as hysterical, just as bizarre. Well, not just as bizarre, but almost as bizarre as Possession. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was like, because it's sort of philosophical. It's sort of about like existential ideas, from what I can recall. Yeah, I just remember the intensity of it. That's the thing that sticks with me most strongly, is just the nonstop hysterical intensity of it, of just characters, yeah, being, yeah, at this constant level, this constant fever pitch of emotion. That's really the thing, kind of just walking away from his movies, that really sticks out in my mind. I kind of had to see Possession a few times before I even realized that it was about marriage, that it's kind of, the whole thing is a metaphor for marriage. You're really just kind of struck by, yeah, the extreme nature of the performances, and yeah, the extreme nature of some of the imagery too. It takes a couple viewings before you're actually able to pay attention to like what the movie's trying to say. So Cosmos, I only saw the one time. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of that went by me. I'll have to try and see it again. But anyways, thank you all for joining me on this episode of Video Drone. Hope you all had a good time. Hope to see you next week, where we'll talk about something, probably. I might see Wonder Woman this week, or next week. And maybe I'll talk about that, and maybe something else. We'll find out. And yeah, until then, my dad is drilling on a car outside. And yeah, I'll try to be doing more Henry Recommends videos. I'll try to finish the next Unmade Masterpieces soon and get that posted. And yeah, everyone, have a good week. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And watch some good movies. And yeah, I'll be doing an interview in about 40 minutes. hopefully you can join me for that as well. But thank you all. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.